Hey y'all, I mentioned a while back that I wasn't really up to speed with modern manga, that is to say Japanese comics, that I've read way more from like the 60s and 70s. I think the 70s I would say I've read the most from manga. And I liked what I read, but I was curious to see kind of like what have been the latest developments. Where's manga gone recently? And I've read, I mean, I've not read, I've watched a lot of modern anime, but manga I've not read much. So I said, I want to read somebody who's kind of popular and cool. And somehow I came across this guy, Junji Ito. And the first thing that I read from him is this book called Shiver. Here it is. And Shiver is a collection of some of his, I guess, favorite short stories. He's written some really long books, but he's also done short stories. And maybe this is a good sampler to start with. Let me say first that I'm not a horror. Horror is not my genre, and that's Junji Ito's main genre. So, especially not horror movies. Horror movies, and a lot of his story, or several of his stories, have been adapted to movies. I'm pretty sure I'll never watch them, but I like. I don't know if I like, but I'm more willing to indulge or try horror in prose perhaps. Maybe not prose so much, but comics I'll give it a try. I guess the thing I don't like about horror in movies is that I don't like gore and I don't like knives going into people and things like that. It just doesn't interest me. It's not like I don't know, like that point of view. The point of view of horror that the world is like horrible, horrible and intolerable and scary and that there are bad things out there. Obviously that is true to some degree, but having that as like your main filter for the world is just not something that interests me. And I find a lot of horror just kind of boring. So I like suspense, I like mystery, I like some of the genres that you can associate with horror, but just horror on its own doesn't primarily interest me. I think Lovecraft and Poe are probably the best. I don't know, want to say the best, but they're the horror authors that I've found most interesting. Poe, because he's a good writer, very literary, and I guess Lovecraft because his conception of horror, not as like at the human level, but at the level of these beings that humans are just like fleas on the side of a dog that can be discarded with whatever their grand cosmic plans may be. So I don't love Lovecraft, but I appreciate some of his ideas. Some of his literary style is not very interesting to me and kind of tedious, but sometimes at his best he's pretty great. So anyways, back to Junji Ito. The book I started with, Shiver, I think the reason I enjoyed it, I wouldn't say I loved it, and I don't feel compelled to hunt down all his other books, but I did enjoy it, and I wouldn't mind reading some more by him. And the reason is that he is just, one, he's a very good artist. He's very, yeah, I would say he's one of the best manga artists that I've seen. He can draw things very detailed, and he draws faces very well, especially kind of horrific faces. Maybe I'll show a few here somewhere. But the storytelling is kind of like a Twilight Zone-y. There's often a twist or kind of things descending in this strange direction that's obviously fantastical, but yeah, it descends into horror. And the thing though that I think I like about it is that there's a humorous element to it, even at its most horrific. There's always this kind of underlying ridiculous. Junji Ito recognizes how strange and unexpected these ideas are. They're very dreamlike. I think he gets a lot of his ideas from dreams, or I get the impression of that anyways. He has some notes and notebooks. I just kind of flipped through that part, but Shiver, yeah, so that's one possible way to start with. But after Shiver, I went on to read this book, which is called YON and Moo, which is the names of these two cats. This is autobiographical, or at least semi-autobiographical, about him and his wife these cats they have. And I like this book much, much more. I found this book, one, I love cats. I think I like cats more than people for the most part. But two, it's just so he does sort of include elements of horror, but it's even more humorous horror. So I just found this book much more enjoyable. It's short too. It's like 110 pages or something, and I read it in one burst last night, and I liked it much more. There are parts that are in color too. Look at the first page. There's also some photos of the real cats. Let's see if I can find that. Yeah, like here's the actual cats upon which this tale is based. That's, I'm trying to remember. I think that's Moo, and then the other cat is called YON, which is Japanese for four. YON. So yeah, and you can see some of his art. Very ridiculous. He incorporates those elements of horror, but he knows he has to, like, it's a compelling book. Oh, yeah. It's also presented in Japanese style from right to left rather than left to right. I love it when they do that. I do not like when they reprint manga like mirrored or weird way. You need to leave it in its original format as much as possible. I wish I could read Japanese better, but not there yet. Anyways, I found this book very compelling, fun. If you like animals, pets, memoirs, there were some very touching moments and wonderful art. And let me see if I can find some more compelling art. Very funny. Well, I don't know if very funny, but pretty funny and unique. There's just some, I don't know, like, look at that cat's drawn. And like, this is him, the character that is him in the book. So he's not afraid of mocking himself and realizing, he refers to himself as a horror artist, but he's also doing these cat stories. So, pleasant surprise. I've looked through his catalog to see if he has any other kind of untraditional books besides horror, but it seems like horror is, for the most part, what he does. And as I said before, I'm less compelled to hunt down his horror books, but who knows, at some point in the future I probably will read a little more of him. But Junji Ito, a pleasant surprise, and if you like horror, definitely seek him out, and if you don't like horror, then this is the book that I would recommend you start with. YON and Moo, his cat diary. Very good book. Nice, easy read. Check it out.